and welcome to the Ident Review, the show where we have a good look and chat about the various television idents that we have come to know and love over the years. And for this instalment, we're taking a look at some more gruesome idents than usual, idents from the Horror Channel. The Horror Channel was first launched in the UK in 2004, and in its now 15-year history, became a channel dedicated to showing cult film, classic horror, thriller TV series, and much more relating to the genre it's named after. As for its idents, we're going to be looking at two sets, the first being introduced in 2013, and the second in 2017. So let's kick things off with our first ident of our first set today, Morgue Drawer. So this one has some classic horror suspense traits. We see the morgue drawer door swing open, the tray within knocking a pram, but of course at first we expect to see something on the morgue board, but we don't. As the pram trundles forward and knocks a plinth, we almost expect the scarily human skeleton being either to topple or react, but once more it does not. Even though the ident concludes there, it almost gives me a Hitchcock sort of feel. The idea that all these things are happening, supposedly leading to some sort of big reveal or jump scare, only to keep us in a frame of suspense. I believe this has been very well condensed as well for such a short ident. But let's move on to our next one of the day, Exploding Head. Okay, well, that happened. This one is straight to the point, no suspense building, no false build-up, no messing around. Some spikes emerge from this thing's head, and then it explodes. I wonder if the spikes are some sort of reference to Pinhead from the Hellraiser franchise. The exploding head itself isn't even really that gruesome when you get down to it, it could have easily been more graphic. But I understand that when broadcasting during the daytime hours, something like that would have been deemed too extreme. Although in fairness, I'm still amazed they got away with this one. Moving onwards, let's now take a look at Lift of Blood.
Rising into the depths of the unknown, feeling trapped is the real horror story. The nightmare continues.
This one I find pretty cool. To see the blood drip from the lift doors instantly makes me think of that famous scene from Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Unfortunately, seeing these drips is all we really get, and I wish they had just gone the full hog and shown the doors open and the blood just flow out into this stark white room. But again, I can understand why this never really happened. Again, having a room filled with blood may have been deemed too graphic, and also possibly too close of a Shining homage that it could have attracted unwanted copyright attention. But that's just a theory as to why. That's all we have for the 2013 set. And even though we've only looked at 3, I think they're all quite diverse, respectful to the horror traits they're broadcasting, and also very memorable. These were revamped in 2017, so let's see the new main ident and see if this creativity is retained. Oh, wait, that's it? Honestly, I know this was made as the main generic ident for horror, but even other channels' main idents aren't this generic and dull. Just a cloud of red, which I assume is meant to be blood, fall from the top of the screen and become the dominant colour against the white horror logo? Really? To replace these quite charming and unique horror-based idents for a cloud of blood that arguably doesn't even look like blood? Not the greatest start, I must say. Let's see if the next one can improve things. So here is Bloodbath. Okay, again, this is quite dull. Some props I will give it though. In just about 10 seconds, it's instantly more suspenseful. With the eerie music and the grim atmosphere, the drip from the tap is always a chilling trait used in many horror movies. But my major gripe with it again is that there just isn't that much here to make it either memorable or even that enjoyable for viewers. It comes, it goes, it's ultimately forgettable. There is another variation to Bloodbath as well, but I'm not going to show it because I'd argue it's even more dull than this one. So let's have a look at what else we have. We have Car. These are now starting to worry me. Again, this one is just dull. It's not even that suspenseful. It is simply a tracking shot that pans towards a car with an open door, a bit of fog around for good measure, and that's it. It seems the team at Horror ditched complexity for a much more minimalist and simple approach, which for television idents can work wonders if done well, but this just comes across as lazy, boring, and something seen simply as a 10-second placeholder before the next programme, not something to intrigue viewers and make them remember the sequence or even the channel overall. Next one up is Corridor. Please, give me something. Okay, little bit better, but by no means perfect. A spooky corridor, lots of mist, eerie music and hectic breathing are all ingredients for a classic horror-based sequence. But again, for these sorts of idents, and especially this sort of reference, I would have really wanted some sort of reveal, payoff, or even just a hint as to what this person is running from or looking for. But hey, compared to the last few, this is definitely an improvement. Let's see if things get any better with Curtains. Now this is how it's done right. This is a clear example of how this minimalist approach that the Horror 2017 set adapted works wonders. A classic dark and moody atmosphere, and a figure slowly rising and expanding in shadow against a curtain. It may be a classic or even cliched trope, but for the sake of a 10-second ident to both capture intrigue and maybe even strike a little bit of fear, it works brilliantly. It's great that we don't get to see fully or clearly what this thing is in my view, and because of the mystery around it, it's over at the perfect time, leaving us to wonder and speculate just as to what it could be. Now for the follow-up, let's have a gander at Doll. And sadly, we've shot back to bland. Sure, a creepy, misty house and a creepy child's doll are both factors that will arouse some fear and suspense in the viewer, but aside from zooming in, nothing actually happens. I honestly have nothing more to say on this one, like give me some stuff of the doll moving or something happening within the house, don't just set us something up to then have nothing come from it. Anyhow, moving on, our next ident of the day is mannequins. This is what dolls should have been. Honestly, it only takes a little effort and creativity to make something work as well as this. I can't tell if this was partly inspired by the mannequin challenge, which was the trend of the time, but also it echoes the Auton villains from Doctor Who, as they often are represented by mannequins. But to see the dimly lit, naked mannequins all lined up staring at you, it really is quite shocking to view. And for those last few seconds, to have that mannequin turn around and reveal himself as a human, and to stare you dead in the eye, now that is quite the image to be left with. One of the best idents from the 2017 set. Our next ident for us to now view is Poltergeist. Dull, dull, dull. Honestly, with a title like Poltergeist, I was honestly expecting a lot more visual clues to the classic 80s movie, but to just see some household items be slowly lifted into the air, I know it should, but it doesn't offer any chills or sense of fear or suspense. Similar to Doll, Bloodbath and Car, it's just one event that happens, it's not that exciting, and then that's it. So let's move on to something hopefully a lot more interesting: radio.
Reports continue of unexplained sightings in the sky of the east coast.
This one is much better. To hear this garbled message of sightings in the sky, only to see the light of something presumably coming to Earth, is a prime echoing of so many classic and great sci-fi movies. But that's why this works well. It recognises it's going for a cliché trait, but still makes it appealing as a television ident. Something that idents like Doll and Poltergeist failed miserably to do, in my opinion. So whilst radio is not my favourite from the set, it's definitely one of the better ones, and it's more memorable as well. So for our penultimate ident of today, we have TV. This makes me think more of Poltergeist than the actual Poltergeist variant. Seriously, this one is wonderfully classic and creepy. A static TV flashing disturbing imagery? Sign me up. As well as reminding me of Poltergeist, it also reminds me of the Ring series of films. Something menacing that could potentially come out of the TV and come after you. Like radio, it's another example of a cliché horror trait being adapted for an ident, but, like radio, it makes it appealing and intriguing enough to stick in the minds of the viewers. And now we shall move to our final ident today, and the ident is Watcher. So I have mixed feelings about this one. Now, I love the concept, seeing someone hiding from some sort of evil, and we gauge their reactions purely from their eye. It works well. I just wish maybe we could have had a few more alternative shots. Whilst this fixed shot does work well, for the moment where something presumably happens outside the hiding spot, a cut to a frontal close-up on the eye, to see truly how the pupils react and so on, I think that could have been even more effective. But for what it is, it works well enough, but still isn't as effective as something like Mannequin. Overall, the horror idents we've looked at today are such a mixed bag. The 2013 idents, while short in number, are wonderfully creative and also wonderfully memorable, whereas the 2017 set, even though having a great more variety, falls flat on its face on a number of those occasions, or it just doesn't reach the full potential of the concepts that it puts forward. But in all, horror through these last few years has done well at representing the theming of its name within its television idents. Even if you caught a segment of one of these whilst flicking through the channels, you'd realise pretty soon that you are indeed watching the Horror Channel. And so we've come to the end, but before we go, the final words from our broadcaster. That was all this week for this instalment of the Ident Review. I hope you all enjoyed watching it, and we hope that you tune in next week. You have the Now Review to look forward to, as well as the latest episode of After These Messages. And don't forget to tune in to the Sunday Catch-Up, have your questions at the ready. But until then, have a good week, and we hope that you'll join us again soon. Good night.